the Swallow Doretti. This rare British sports car, produced for just over a year in the mid-1950s, has a fascinating story that combines innovation, style, and a touch of corporate intrigue. Our tale begins in the early 1950s. The Swallow Coach Building Company, once known for making sidecars and Jaguar bodies, had been taken over by a larger corporation called Tube Investments. The new owners wanted to revive the Swallow name, but this time in the sports car market. To bring this vision to life, they turned to two men, Eric Sanders, the managing director of Swallow Coach Building, and Frank Rainbow, an engineer with no prior experience in car design. It was a bold move, but one that would soon pay off. The spark for the Doretti came during a trip Sanders took to California in 1952. There, he met an American car distributor named Arthur Anderson. Anderson saw an opportunity in the growing demand for stylish, powerful sports cars in the United States. He suggested creating a new car specifically for the American market. Back in England, Sanders and Rainbow got to work. They decided to base their new car on the mechanical components of the Triumph TR2, a popular sports car at the time. They would use the TR2's engine, gearbox, and front suspension, but Rainbow would design an entirely new chassis and body. What happened next was remarkable. In just 9 months, Rainbow and his small team developed the Swallow Doretti. The car featured a tubular steel frame made from Reynolds 531, a material known for its strength and lightweight. This innovative chassis gave the Doretti better handling and rigidity than many of its competitors. The Doretti's design was heavily influenced by Italian styling, giving it a more sophisticated look compared to other British cars of the time. It was longer and wider than the TR2, which allowed for a more spacious interior and better weight distribution. The engine was mounted further back in the chassis, achieving a near-perfect 50/50th balance between the front and rear of the car. But where did the name Doretti come from? It was actually suggested by Arthur Anderson, who named it after his daughter, Dorothy Dean. Dorothy was involved in the car business herself, running a successful sports car accessories company. Production of the Doretti began in early 1954 at a factory in Walsall, England. The car was powered by a 1,991 cc inline-4 engine, capable of producing around 90 horsepower. This allowed the Doretti to reach speeds of up to 100 miles per hour and accelerate from 0 to 60 miles per hour in about 12 seconds. Impressive figures for the time. Inside, the Doretti had some quirky features. Unlike most cars, where the gauges and controls were neatly arranged in front of the driver, the Doretti had a somewhat haphazard layout. The rev counter, for example, was located in front of the passenger. Some cars even had the steering wheel installed upside down from the factory. Despite these oddities, the Doretti was praised for its overall build quality and refinement. It was marketed as a high-end alternative to the Triumph TR2 with superior styling and comfort. This was reflected in its price. While a TR2 could be purchased for around £844, the Doretti cost £1,101. The Doretti initially sold well, especially in the United States. Its stylish looks and high performance made it popular with enthusiasts who were willing to pay a premium for a more exclusive car. However, dark clouds were gathering on the horizon. Jaguar, which was also part of the Tube Investments Group, began to express concerns. They worried that the Doretti could compete with their own sports cars, particularly the best-selling XK120. This internal competition didn't sit well with Jaguar's management. As a result, the Swallow Doretti's production run was extremely short, lasting only from 1954 to 1955. In that time, just 276 units were produced. The official reason given for the car's discontinuation was a change in corporate policy at Tube Investments. However, it's widely believed that pressure from Jaguar played a significant role. A few prototypes of a second-generation Doretti known as the Sabre were built, but these never went into full production. And so, after just over a year, the Swallow Doretti's brief but brilliant run came to an end. But that wasn't the end of the Doretti story. Today, the Swallow Doretti is considered a rare and valuable collector's item. Many of the surviving cars have been lovingly restored to their original condition, and they are often featured at classic car shows and auctions. In recent years, the value of these cars has continued to rise, with fully restored models selling for upwards of $70,000. The Doretti's rarity and unique place in automotive history make it highly sought after among collectors. Its combination of Italian-inspired design and British engineering gives it a special appeal that continues to captivate car enthusiasts decades after its production ended. The Clan Crusader. In the early 1970s, a small British company set out to create a sports car that would challenge the giants of the automotive world. This is the story of the Clan Crusader, a lightweight fiberglass wonder that burned bright but brief in the annals of automotive history. Our tale begins in 1969 when two former Lotus engineers, Paul Hausauer and Brian Luff, decided to strike out on their own. Their vision? To build a sports car that was light, nimble, and affordable. By 1971, their dream had become reality, and the Clan Motor Company was up and running in a 24,000 square foot factory in Washington County, Durham, England. The result of their labor was the Clan Crusader, a car that embodied the spirit of 1970s sports car design. With its wedge-shaped body and compact size, the Crusader looked every bit the part of a speed machine. But it wasn't just about looks. The Crusader had some serious engineering chops under its sleek exterior. At the heart of the Crusader's design was its innovative fiberglass monocoque chassis. This single-piece structure was both incredibly light and surprisingly strong, giving the car excellent handling characteristics. The use of fiberglass allowed the Crusader to tip the scales at a mere 580 kilograms, or about 1,323 pounds. To put that in perspective, that's less than half the weight of many modern compact cars. Powering this lightweight chassis was an 875cc Coventry Climax engine, borrowed from the Hillman Imp Sport. While 51 horsepower might not sound like much today, it was enough to propel the featherweight Crusader to a top speed of 99 miles per hour. Even more impressive was its acceleration. The Crusader could sprint from 0 to 60 miles per hour in just 12.9 seconds, a respectable figure for its time. The Crusader quickly gained a reputation for its agility on twisty roads. Automotive journalists of the era praised its handling, comparing it favorably to more expensive sports cars. For many driving enthusiasts, the Crusader offered an enticing package, sports car performance at a more attainable price point. Speaking of price, in 1971, a fully assembled Clan Crusader would set you back about 1,400 pounds. For those handy with a wrench, a kit version was available for 1,123 pounds. This pricing strategy placed the Crusader above more mundane offerings like the MG Midget or Ford Pinto, but well below premium sports cars like the Lotus Elan. Despite its promising start, the Clan Motor Company soon ran into trouble. Strikes at Chrysler, which supplied many of the car's components, led to production delays. Ironically, the 1973 oil crisis initially boosted demand for the fuel-efficient Crusader, but new tax laws and economic turmoil eventually took their toll. In November 1973, just 2 years after starting production, the Clan Motor Company closed its doors. In that short time, only 315 Crusaders had rolled off the production line, with a few more completed by receivers after the company's closure. But while the Clan Motor Company's run was brief, the Crusader's story was far from over. The car found a second life in the world of motorsports. Its lightweight design and rear-mounted engine made it a formidable competitor in rallying and club racing. In 1972, driver Andy Dawson piloted a Crusader to a second-place finish in the challenging Manx Rally. That same year, Alan Conley took first place in the Tour of Mull Rally behind the wheel of a Crusader. The car's success wasn't limited to rallying. In 1974, a Clan Crusader claimed victory in both the British Caledonian Mod Sports and Sports and Special GT Championship. Even after production ceased, enthusiasts continued to race and modify Crusaders well into the 1980s, often upgrading them with larger engines for even better performance. The Crusader's story might have ended there, but its unique design and cult following led to several attempts at revival. After the Clan Motor Company's closure, the car's body molds were purchased by Andreas Kaisis, a businessman from Cyprus. Kaisis planned to restart production, but his efforts were derailed by the Turkish invasion of Cyprus in 1974, which left the factory and molds stranded in a UN buffer zone. Back in the UK, Brian Luff, one of the Crusader's original creators, continued to produce body shells for existing owners and racing enthusiasts until the early 1980s. Then, in 1982, a Northern Ireland businessman named Peter McCandless bought the molds and formed Clan Cars Limited. McCandless produced about 130 updated Crusaders, featuring modern touches like pop-up headlights, larger bumpers, and a redesigned dashboard. He even developed a new model called the Clan Clover, powered by a 1,490cc Alfa Romeo engine. However, only 26 Clovers were built before quality control issues and financial problems forced Clan Cars to close its doors. At the same time, a former Clan employee named Arthur Birchall was working on his own Crusader-inspired vehicle. Called the McCoy, Birchall's creation used parts from the Mini and featured front-wheel drive. While innovative, the McCoy never achieved the same popularity as the original Crusader. Today, the Clan Crusader lives on in the hearts of classic car enthusiasts, particularly in the United Kingdom. The Clan Owners Club continues to support Crusader owners, helping them find replacement parts and maintain their rare vehicles. While several attempts have been made to revive the brand, none have resulted in large-scale production. You can still spot Clan Crusaders at classic car shows, club racing events, and hill climbs, where they continue to turn heads with their unique design and impressive performance. The Crusader stands as a testament to British ingenuity and the enduring appeal of lightweight, no-frills sports cars. The Berkeley SE 328. In the aftermath of World War II, Britain's roads were crying out for something new. Enter the Berkeley SE 328, a tiny car with a big personality. This pint-sized wonder rolled off the production line in January 1957, marking the start of a brief but memorable chapter in automotive history. The story of the SE 328 begins in the small town of Biggleswade, England. Berkeley Cars Limited, a company better known for making caravans, decided to try their hand at car manufacturing. But this wasn't just any car. It was a microcar, designed to be small, efficient, and affordable. The brains behind this operation were Charles Panter, the head of Berkeley Caravans, and Laurie Bond, a talented designer. Bond had already made a name for himself with the Bond minicar, a three-wheeled vehicle that looked more like a motorcycle with a roof than a car. Together, Panter and Bond set out to create something that would turn heads and save on gas. What made the Berkeley SE 328 stand out was its use of fiberglass. In the 1950s, fiberglass was the new wonder material. It was light, strong, and didn't rust, perfect for making a car body. Berkeley, with their experience in caravan manufacturing, knew how to work with fiberglass. This gave them a unique edge in the automotive world. The SE 328 was tiny by today's standards. At just over 10 feet long, it could fit in spaces that would make a modern Mini look bulky, but don't let its size fool you. This little car packed a punch. Under the hood was a 328cc Excelsior engine. It was a two-cylinder, two-stroke engine that produced 18 horsepower. That might not sound like much, but when you're pushing a car that weighs only 650 pounds, it's enough to get you moving. The design of the SE 328 was revolutionary for its time. It used a front-engine, front-wheel drive layout, which was uncommon in the 1950s. The body was a fiberglass monocoque, meaning the body itself was structural. This was a big deal. Most cars of the era used a separate body and frame. Inside, the SE 328 was snug but functional. It could seat two adults, although anyone over 6 feet tall might have found it a bit cramped. Early models had a column-mounted gear shift, but later versions moved it to the floor. The car had a 3-speed manual transmission, which was standard for the time. One of the biggest selling points of the SE 328 was its fuel efficiency. It could achieve up to 70 miles per gallon, a figure that would make many modern car buyers green with envy. This made it an attractive option during a time when fuel prices were on the rise. The Berkeley SE 328 wasn't just popular in Britain. It found a significant market across the pond in the United States. In fact, out of the 1,259 SE 328s produced, 551 were exported to America. The U.S. versions had to be slightly modified to meet local regulations, including changes to the headlamp design. In the U.S., the SE 328 sold for around $1,600, which would be about $17,000 in today's money. It faced stiff competition from other microcars like the BMW Sedan and the Messerschmitt KR200, but managed to carve out its own niche. The car could reach a top speed of about 70 miles per hour. In road tests conducted by the Motor Magazine in 1957, the SE328 hit a top speed of 62.1 miles per hour and could accelerate from 0 to 50 miles per hour in about 30.6 seconds. Berkeley even took the SE328 racing. The car participated in various motorsport events, including the grueling 1958 Liège-Brescia-Liège rally. Pat Moss, a well-known rally driver, competed in this event with an SE328. Although the car didn't finish due to mechanical issues, its participation helped raise Berkeley's profile in the automotive world. Despite its innovative design and initial success, the SE328 faced some challenges. The two-stroke engine, while efficient, was prone to overheating and could be noisy. The car's small size made it susceptible to being blown around in strong winds, which could be unnerving at highway speeds. Production of the Berkeley SE328 came to an end in April 1958 after just over a year. Berkeley continued to produce cars for a few more years, including models like the SE492 and the Foursome, but they never achieved the same level of success as the SE328. By 1960, Berkeley Cars Limited had gone out of business. The company's reliance on small, two-stroke engines limited its appeal in larger markets, especially in the United States, where drivers were accustomed to more powerful cars. Today, the Berkeley SE328 is remembered as a quirky but innovative piece of automotive history. It's become a sought-after collector's item, with restored models fetching high prices at auctions. Some examples have sold for as much as $23,000. The SE328 represents a unique moment in time, when post-war austerity met innovative design. It wasn't the fastest car, or the most comfortable, or even the most reliable, but it was different. It was a car that dared to be small in a world that was starting to think big. The Oscar MT4. A small but mighty machine that punched well above its weight class. And we're going to dive into the fascinating story of this remarkable vehicle and the men who created it. Our tale begins in 1947 when three brothers, Ernesto, Ettore, and Bindo Maserati, decided to start a new chapter in their lives. After selling their shares in the famous Maserati company, they founded a new venture called Officine Specializzate Costruzione Automobili, or OSCA for short. Their goal was simple, yet ambitious, to build small, high-performance sports cars that could compete with the best in the world. The result of their efforts was the MT4, which stands for Maserati Tipo 4-Cilindri. This name gives us a clue about the car's heart, a four-cylinder engine that would prove to be a masterpiece of engineering. The MT4 made its debut in 1948, and it didn't take long for the racing world to sit up and take notice. Let's talk about what made the MT4 so special. At first glance, it might not have seemed like much. The initial version had an engine of just 1,092 cubic centimeters, or about 1.1 liters. This tiny power plant produced around 72 horsepower, not exactly earth-shattering numbers, even for the 1940s. But the Maserati brothers had a trick up their sleeves. You see, the MT4 was light, really light. Its frame was made of tubular steel and its body was crafted from aluminum. All told, the car weighed only about 600 kilograms or 1,300 pounds. To put that in perspective, it's less than half the weight of many modern sports cars. This featherweight design meant that every one of those 72 horses had less mass to push around, making the MT4 surprisingly quick and agile. The engine itself was a marvel of engineering for its time. It featured a double overhead camshaft design, often abbreviated as DOHC. This setup allowed the engine to breathe better at high speeds, which was crucial for racing performance. As the years went by, OSCA continued to refine and improve the engine. By 1950, they had increased its size to 1,342 cc and boosted its output to about 90 horsepower. 3 years later, in 1953, they pushed it even further to 1,452 cc and 110 horsepower. By the mid-1950s, The MT4 was sporting a 1,491cc engine with twin-spark ignition, capable of producing a respectable 120 horsepower. But power wasn't everything. The MT4's lightweight design made it incredibly nimble on the track. Its tubular frame provided a rigid structure that helped it corner like a dream. The bodywork, often crafted by renowned Italian coach builders like Morelli, Vignale, and Frua, wasn't just beautiful, it was functional, helping to reduce weight and improve aerodynamics. The MT4 suspension was relatively simple by modern standards, with independent front suspension and a live axle at the rear. But in the hands of skilled drivers, this setup allowed for precise control and feedback. The car's drum brakes might seem outdated today, but they were more than up to the task of slowing down this lightweight racer. Now, let's talk about the MT4's racing career, because this is where the little car really shone. Its debut came at the Coppa Acerbo in Pescara, Italy in 1948. The driver was Franco Cornacchia, and while he didn't finish the race, it was clear that the MT4 had potential. That potential was realized later that same year when Luigi Villoresi drove an MT4 to victory in the Grand Prix of Naples. But the MT4's greatest triumphs were yet to come. Throughout the early 1950s, it competed in some of the most prestigious races in the world. In 1953, Oscar cars achieved a 1-2-3 finish in their class at the grueling Mille Miglia, a 1,000-mile race across Italy. That same year, they also took class victories at the 24 Hours of Le Mans in France and the 12 Hours of Sebring in Florida. However, it was in 1954 that the MT4 truly cemented its place in racing history. At that year's 12 Hours of Sebring, an MT4 driven by the legendary Sterling Moss and Bill Lloyd didn't just win its class, it won the entire race outright. This was a David versus Goliath moment, with the little Oscar beating much more powerful cars from Ferrari, Jaguar, and Aston Martin. The MT4 finished a full 5 laps ahead of its nearest competitor, a feat that's still talked about in racing circles today. The MT4's success wasn't limited to endurance racing. It also excelled in sprint races and hill climbs, proving its versatility. The car won numerous national championships in both Europe and North America, including class victories in the Italian Sports Car Championship and the SCCA National Championship in the United States. Part of what made the MT4 so successful was its reliability. In endurance racing, finishing the race is half the battle, and the MT4 had a reputation for being able to go the distance. This made it a popular choice among privateers, independent racers who could buy an MT4 and compete in various events without needing a large support team or budget. As the 1950s progressed, Oscar continued to innovate. In 1955, they introduced the MT4TN, or Tipo Nuovo. This updated version featured a more aerodynamic body and several mechanical upgrades. The rear suspension was changed from a live axle to a more advanced Dedion setup, which improved handling, especially in high-speed corners. The MT4TN also introduced a twin-spark ignition system in its 1,500cc engine. This innovation improved combustion efficiency, resulting in both more power and better fuel economy. These improvements helped keep the MT4 competitive against newer rivals like the Porsche 550 Spyder. Speaking of rivals, by the late 1950s, the MT4 was facing increasingly stiff competition. The Porsche 550 Spyder in particular was lighter and more powerful, and it began to dominate the under 1,500cc class. In response, Oscar focused on making the MT4 as reliable as possible, capitalizing on its reputation for durability. The MT4's impact went beyond the racetrack. In 1955, an MT4 chassis fitted with a special streamlined body and a 1,500cc engine was used for land speed record attempts at the Bonneville Salt Flats in Utah. The car set several records, including a class speed record of over 150 miles per hour. These record-breaking runs further solidified the MT4's reputation as a high-performance machine. As the 1950s drew to a close, the MT4's racing career began to wind down. By 1957, Oscar had shifted its focus to smaller displacement classes, such as the 750cc category. Although the MT4 was no longer as dominant as it had been earlier in the decade, it remained a respected and competitive car in vintage racing events. The legacy of the Oscar MT4 is one of innovation, determination, and punching above its weight. It showed that with clever engineering and a focus on lightweight design, even a small car could compete with the giants of the racing world. The Maserati brothers, Ernesto, Ettore, and Bindo, created more than just a car. They created a legend, a giant killer that proved that in racing, as in life, it's not the size of the dog in the fight, but the size of the fight in the dog that matters. The Cisitalia 202. In the years following World War II, a small Italian company created a car that would change automotive design forever. This is the story of the Cisitalia 202, a sports car that blended art and engineering in a way the world had never seen before. Our tale begins with Piero Duccio, an Italian businessman and amateur race car driver. In 1946, Duccio founded a company called Cisitalia. At first, Cisitalia made sports equipment, but Duccio's passion for racing soon led the company in a new direction. Cisitalia's first automotive project was the D46, a single-seat race car. The D46 was successful on the track, but Duccio had bigger dreams. He wanted to create a sports car for the road that captured the spirit of racing. This vision would become the Cisitalia 202. To bring his dream to life, Duccio assembled a team of Italy's top automotive talents. He recruited Dante Giacosa, the engineer behind the popular Fiat 500, to work on the technical aspects of the car. Giovanni Savanuzzi joined the team to refine the design, but perhaps the most important addition was Battista Pininfarina, who would later change his name to Pininfarina. Farina was tasked with creating the body of the 202, and his work would prove revolutionary. Before the 202, most cars had a segmented look with separate fenders and body panels. Farina's design for the 202 was different. He created a smooth, flowing shape that ran uninterrupted from the front of the car to the rear. This one-piece design was a radical departure from tradition and would influence car design for decades to come. The Cisitalia 202 made its debut in 1947, and it immediately caught the world's attention. Its sleek, aerodynamic body was unlike anything else on the road. The car was so striking that in 1951, the Museum of Modern Art in New York added a Cisitalia 202 to its permanent collection. It was the first car ever to receive this honor. The museum described the 202 as a sculpture in motion, praising its elegant minimalist design. But the 202 wasn't just about looks. Under its beautiful aluminum body was a car built for performance. The chassis was made of lightweight tubular steel, a design borrowed from racing cars. This gave the 202 both strength and agility. The car was powered by a 1.1-liter engine derived from Fiat. While its 60 to 66 horsepower might seem modest today, it was impressive for a small sports car of the time. Thanks to its lightweight, just 1,960 pounds, the 202 could reach speeds of up to 100 miles per hour. The 202 also featured some advanced technologies for its time. It was one of the first cars to use rack and pinion steering, which provided more precise control. This, combined with its lightweight design and aerodynamic body, made the 202 a joy to drive on both road and track. Speaking of the track, the Cisitalia 202 proved its racing pedigree in one of the most grueling races of all, the Mille Miglia. In 1947, the legendary Italian driver Tazio Nuvolari piloted a 202 in this 1,000-mile race across Italy. Despite heavy rain and mechanical issues, Nuvolari managed to lead for much of the race. He ultimately finished second overall and first in his class, a remarkable achievement that cemented the 202's reputation as a serious performance car. Cisitalia produced several variants of the 202 over its 5-year production run. The original model was known as the 202 SC for Sport Coupe. It featured a 2-seat layout, a split windshield, and a distinctive front grille with 23 vertical blades. Both coupe and cabriolet versions were available. In 1949, Cisitalia introduced the 202B. This model had a more powerful engine and some design changes, including a one-piece curved windshield. It could also be ordered with 4 seats. The 202C followed in 1951, adding luxury touches like rectangular portholes and a rear trunk lid. For those who wanted even more performance, there was the 202D, also known as the Competizione model. Built in 1952, it featured a larger 2.8-liter engine for even more power. The final version was the 202L, which had a longer wheelbase and could seat up to 5 people. Only 5 examples of this model were ever built. Despite its innovations and critical acclaim, the Cisitalia 202 was produced in very limited numbers. Over its entire production run from 1947 to 1952, only about 170 examples were built. Each car was handcrafted, which contributed to its exclusivity, but also made large-scale production challenging. Several different coach builders were involved in producing the 202, including Pininfarina, Stabilimenti Farina, and Vignale. This hand-built nature means that each 202 is slightly unique, adding to their appeal among collectors today. While the 202 was a triumph of design and engineering, it wasn't enough to secure Cisitalia's future. Piero Duccio had ambitious plans for the company, including a Formula One project in collaboration with Ferdinand Porsche. However, these plans proved too costly, and Cisitalia faced financial difficulties. The company's struggles eventually led to its downfall, making the 202 one of the few reminders of Cisitalia's brief but brilliant existence.